What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the All-In Podcast, a podcast for casual leaguers and TeamFight Tactics players. I am the League Dad, and I'm joined by the one, the only Nighthawk, and he is here joining us here for another segment of TeamFight Tactics. And patch notes came out for 9.18. Doesn't officially come out live, I think, until tomorrow, but as you're listening to this, it's probably today, so be on the lookout for that. If you didn't know and you're listening to this and you're like, wait a minute, why are all these changes happening? It's because the patch probably dropped before you knew it. So we're going to be talking all about 9.18 today, but before we do that, Nighthawk, how are you doing? Let our listeners and viewers get an update on how you've been. You survived the hurricane. We're both from North Carolina, so we just took on Dorian, but I survived. How'd you fare, my friend?
Fared pretty well. Nobody got hurt, which is always the most important part. No major damage to any houses in my area.
Nice.
No power was only out for. We only lost power for like 8 hours, which is very short. Last year we were without power for almost a week, which was not fun. Yeah. So overall, 8 out of 10 would hurricane again, maybe.
That's cool. You've been able to play any Teamfight Tactics lately?
Yeah, just a bit. I've made my way to around gold 2, gold 1, and I've been sort of bouncing around there a lot. Yeah. Trying to finish all these because the beta pass. This is a long beta pass. So I've been trying to play a little bit more to try and get the points I need. I have no idea when it ends. I'm at level 9 right now, so hopefully not too soon.
Yeah, and I'm trying to, because for me the big patch is 9.19 when they introduce the new items, and I think that's really going to be super chaotic. So I'm trying to actually play as much as I can since the meta is kind of stabilized. There are a lot of OP things and some not so OP things, and so I'm trying to take advantage of a somewhat stable meta where there's like clear comps that are strong and trying to play around that. So I've actually was able to climb to Plat 2 for a second. So I'm in Plat 3 now, but I got both Smurfs to Plat at least, or my Smurf and my main both on Plat now. So trying to climb as much as I can because I feel like I have a decent grasp as at the meta right now. Void Assassin seems to be doing super well. So is some Ranger Elementalist is freaking ridiculous. With 4 Glacials, you have Anivia, Anivia, Lysandra, and then you have Brand for the Elementalist, but you have Sejuani and Ashe, and then Demon with Brand and Varus. It's nuts, man. It's actually really, really good.
Yeah, I could see that being good.
Yeah, so it's kind of a twist on the whole Ranger content. And Rangers in general, we've been talking about, have been good. They've been buffed, so they've been doing well. And then, of course, Demon Shapeshifters is like unbelievable. Like if you put a demon, make a demon Gnar, it's insane, man. But there's a lot of stuff going on right now. I feel like Eve carry has kind of diminished a little bit. I was playing it a bit and it was just getting messed up so hard. So a lot of different things happening, but I hope you guys out there listening or watching are having a good climb so far. And if you have any questions or want to talk about something in particular that you'd want us to cover, then feel free to email us at the allinpodcast@gmail.com. But today's segment is all about patch 9.18, so we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. Is there anything off the top of your head right now that you want to talk about first, Nighthawk? Anything in particular where you're like, ooh, this is going to be awesome? I looked over it.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I think they did a good job with this patch. The first thing on the patch is probably the biggest thing, and I think it's going to make a lot of people a lot more happy. Before we get into it, if I went to you and I said, what do you say the #1 complaint about TFT is like at this current moment? What would you say it is?
Item RNG, my friend. Item RNG. Yes. It feels like you get one person that has like 8 items and one person has 0. So yeah, definitely.
That has been consistently the top of everyone that I've seen. Like that's the top of their complaint chart. Yeah. The first thing on this patch, it is addressing inconsistent item RNG, and the system that they're using is, they explained it decently well. I'll run it down for you guys just to take us through say what they hear, and then I'll give you what I think it means, because sometimes those are a little different.
Exactly.
So they say, we've changed how items are distributed in PvE rounds. The goal is to keep a variety of experiences across many games, but also make the game more fair over the course of a single game. So the changes they've made are: common boxes now contain gold, champions, or Neeko's Help, which is a new consumable that we'll talk about in a second.
Yep.
Uncommon boxes contain item components, gold, champions, or Neeko's Help. Yep. Rare item boxes contain spatulas, which are still item components, but rarer. Full items, gold, nice. Champions, or Neeko's Help. Yep. Every player now gets approximately the same number of boxes across a single game. Every player gets approximately the same number of item components across a single game. Now, note this does not mean that you're guaranteed items every round, or you're not guaranteed every items from the beginning. You still have a chance to get gold or champions, I guess, now. Yep. But hopefully this means that if you do make it to like raptors or even wolves, that you should have around the same amount of items that somebody else has.
Yeah.
And then Neeko's Help, since we talked about it a little bit last week, but it's basically a new item, which is a consumable, where if you place it on any champion on the field or on your bench, it will add another 1-star copy of that champion. So it's basically just like a one-size-fits-all item. Yeah. So if you really need another brand, or you really need another Pantheon or an Ashe to get your Lash level 3, Neeko's Help will be a big help for that.
I really like this item. I don't know exactly what it's going to do to the meta. And we'll talk about some of the other changes they make earlier, because they changed some of the numbers around as far as how many, tier 2 or tier 3 units there are out there, because they felt like it was a little too easy to make. But I'm like, but you also added Neeko's Help, which is a consumable that's going to allow you to also make copies. So I don't know how that maybe it's to balance that part out, because I do think it's going to be, with Neeko's Help, a little bit easier to make those 2-star units. But one thing that is just, it's crazy to me that, and I like this aspect. It's a little bit different because champions are another thing that will drop, if I'm reading that correctly.
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
This is something that they toyed with when the item box system first came out. And it was pretty widely discouraged. Like, people said, man, I don't really want champions from around. But I didn't really understand why it was discouraged, and people were okay with gold, because champions dropping from around is functionally identical to gold dropping from around.
Exactly.
Because if you don't like the champion that you got, you can just sell them. Whether or not you get more gold or less gold, maybe you'll get less gold from champion drops as a result. But I still think it's fine. I think that it would be really cool to get a champion drop that you really need. I don't know if it's tied to the same amount of champions that are in a game, so I don't know, like, if that means if everyone's going NARs, I don't know if that means if you're less likely to get a NAR from a box.
That's a good question. That will definitely make a big difference. So we need clarity, I think, on that from Riot, because that would definitely make a difference as far as like probabilities of getting the champion, if it did affect the overall champion pool. My gut feeling is that it won't, but again, it'll make a big difference if it does.
It would make a lot of sense if it didn't affect it, because then, like, it actually is good for a champion to drop.
Yeah. For sure.
Because then, like, oh, I have a higher chance of getting this now. But in its current state, it just feels like another way to get gold, which is not a bad thing.
Well, imagine this too, right? Like, let's say you weren't even thinking of a certain comp. Let's maybe say you maybe have 2 elementalists, weren't necessarily thinking about going elementalist, right? Especially because you're in a point where the game where you've kind of been trying to get a different comp, but then all of a sudden, a champion drops, and let's say it's a brand. It's a 3rd elementalist, right? You also have a Neeko's Help, right? That's 2 brands you have. Now it becomes a viable option where you only need to get one more brand from like a draw to make a 2-star brand, right? To then make an elementalist comp where you can be like, okay, I can maybe think about pivoting if it doesn't seem, if you're trying to force a certain comp, which again, sometimes you have to, like if you have all the pieces there, and maybe if it's not working out. I think this opens up some more potential pivots in times where you absolutely can't go that comp because maybe other players are playing it. So I think the champion drop is actually cool, because yes, it is random and probably won't be the champ that you're looking for, but at least gives certain, I think, variety, which, I guess they said they want a variety of experiences across the game. Whereas, before it's just items, but now you can actually maybe play around synergies because you have champions dropping, you have Neeko's help dropping. It makes it much more viable to pivot into certain synergies if need be. So I think that's pretty cool. We'll have to see again if people, they'll always find a way to complain. So I'm wondering if because again, it does still feel bad if you're getting all gold. Like for example, now if you get in the first PvE rounds and it's all gold and you get no items, yeah, you get a lot more gold than the other players, but you'd rather have the items. So I'm wondering how this is going to affect. Maybe there'll be, I don't know. Well, it's all speculation at this point. But either way, I like this mystery box system. I think you like it. If I understand the vibe that you're putting out, it seems like it's a nice little change up for.
I think it's a good step in the right direction because it did feel really cool to have like that one game where you get 8 items really early and it's like ridiculous, but the 7 out of the 8 games where you don't have that happen feel really bad, especially if you start out, you get like a chainmail and a health crystal or a health belt. And the enemy guy has like a rage blade static shiv, and okay. I lose now.
It's not fun at all, and there have been games where simply because of my item drops, I didn't need to hyper roll. I didn't need to do anything, but just sit on my comp and wait till my draws were coming along, and I was just winning straight up off items.
That's a skill, by the way. That sounds like a joke, but that's actually a skill. Yeah. Learning to use your items early. And put them on maybe non-ideal targets to get that advantage to make sure you get your eco up. That is a very hard skill to learn, especially if you're very greedy. I'm a very greedy player. I don't like to put my items on champions that I don't want them to be on. But it can be very helpful if you do.
And the thing is, it's good to know because there are certain good early game items, and on certain champions that make them OP. Like for an example, if I get a Garen, put Morello's on him, 2-star Morello's, or even a Morello's and a GA on him, because 9 times out of 10, Garen is not going to be in my comp late game. Even if I decide to go Knights, it's most likely going to be a Sejuani or a Poppy, right? So Garen's going to be somebody that I'm going to take out anyways. And him with those items is pretty strong. Or any Ranger with static Shiv is going to be wrecking. So early on, it doesn't take much. If you get those items, if you get them on the right champions, especially if they're replaceable or they're going to be replaced, you're right. I think that's a good skill and thing to know as you're playing and knowing when to move on from that. Because you'll feel like you're on top of the world in the beginning, but then all of a sudden mid-game, it's going to hit you and you're like, I'm losing every round. And you take a lot of damage later. So
some of my friends, they fall into the trap of going way too hard on level 3 1 costs. Like they'll make a Darius level 3 or they'll make a Garen level 3 and then they'll put really, really good items on it. And it carries them all the way until stage 4, stage 5.
Yep.
And then it starts to be worthless because Garen and Darius just aren't that good late game. They don't deal with CC well. They don't deal with large amounts of units well. But they don't want to sell it because it's a 3-star. And it feels really bad to sell a 3-star. And that's true. But when you have a Sejuani or you have something else that you could put Dragon's Claw on, or you could put the Thornmail on, you have to bite the bullet. You have to do it. You just have to bite the bullet, sell the Darius, sell the Garen.
And again, I think part of that is knowledge again, right? Because we talked about good early game items and champs, but you also need to know good mid game champs and good late game champs, right? And then good late game champs with certain items, because if you start to understand, okay, this might be a 1-star unit right now, but he's still stronger than my 2-star lower cost unit, you know what I mean? And just for maybe the synergy, or even just because it's a stronger unit, like a Kale even, or even a Swain, having those at 1-star, they're still pretty good, especially with some items. So you have to know kind of the power balance there and where you're at in the game. And I think all of that just comes with experience, but being aware of where you're at, what stage of the game you're in, and what's going to be strong in that stage, depending on where you're at. All of those things are things that you just pick up as you keep going.
We've talked about this one thing for so long, but just before we move on, real quick, I wanted to just say that I think we'll see a lot of Neeko's help being used as like a noob trap. I think we'll see a lot of people using it to get that last vein, to get 3-star vein, or get that last Garen to get 3-star Garen. I think almost every situation, it's going to be better to save it to get a 2-star legendary or a 2-star 4 cost.
I agree.
Earlier. Yeah.
Yeah.
So don't get baited. Vayne 3-star is great, but it's really not that much better than a 2-star. Yeah. And a level 2 brand or level 2 Pantheon is going to be so much more impactful than a level 3 Vayne.
Oh my gosh. A level 2 Pantheon? Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh.
Be conservative.
Yeah, be conservative. All right, so we talked about mystery boxes. That is a pretty cool thing. Now let's talk about some of the system changes. So they're adjusting XP. So because of, I guess there's going to be more gold going around in the game because of these mystery boxes, they are making some adjustments of how much XP it takes to level, which is interesting because I kind of tend to level at certain times, especially if I have the gold. Yes. So now level 5 is one of them. Usually I level 5 right after the second carousel because it only costs 4 gold. You're at 6 usually if you had leveled up 4, and you only need to level up once to get to level 5. Now it's going to be 12 XP, so you won't quite be there. But I guess
you'll have
maybe
to spend
with
8 gold.
Yeah, you have to spend 8 gold,
to get there.
But if the new looting system kind of compensates for that, then we'll see if that actually does or not make a big difference. I think it will, but again, let me just read through it. So level 5 was 10 XP, now it's 12 XP to get to level 5. Level 6 was 18 XP, now it's 20 XP. Level 7 was 30 XP, now it's 32 XP. Level 8 was 46 XP, now it's 50 XP. And level 9, which anybody hardly gets there, but it was 64 XP, now it's 70 XP. My first impressions is I think this is gonna change some strategies of how and when people level, because it all is kind of assessing, like, do I want to level up earlier than most so that I can get access to some of these higher cost champions, or is it better to wait? So I think this is going to play around with timing of leveling. What are your thoughts on it, Nighthawk?
It definitely pushes. I'll have to see how much extra gold is actually injected into the economy.
Yeah,
to give these changes. If it ends up being where I'm actually like ahead 4 gold at this stage, which I highly doubt, that seems like a lot, then this makes no difference. But if it doesn't, this means that people will be leveling up slightly later. It will be slightly, there's a few different weird consequences to this. I think getting one lower cost units is going to be slightly harder now because people will be at those lower levels for a little bit longer.
Good point.
So they'll be rolling for those 1 costs earlier. This also means that leveling up really quickly means that you have a much higher chance at getting those high cost units first, and actually getting like the impactful units like a Kale before anyone else if you're focusing on leveling. And another change that comes later on in the patch is when a 5 cost comes about. I guess it's no point teasing it. There used to be a very small chance to pick up a 5 cost at level 6.
Yep.
It was 0.5%. They've removed that. So now you have no chance to pick up a level 5 or a 5 cost unit at level 6. So it is impossible. So now you have to get to 7 before you even have a chance to roll the Kale, which again, that's a nerf to Nobles. And Nobles have hit, like they've received a lot of hits recently. Same. It's a nerf to Swain, nerf to Pantheon. All of these are nerfs to these aggressively rolling and trying to get your units as fast as possible. And I feel like it's all like slight buffs to ecoing and just naturally rolling slowly and leveling up quicker.
Yeah, I think I'll speak to the point also of, even if you get more gold, I still think it's going to be harder to level earlier, for the sense of a lot of times it is almost better to get that interest breakpoint, right? Like if you have gold. So even if you get like 4 more gold or so, it's probably not enough to push you to the next interest breakpoint. You'll probably be in the middle of somewhere. And so even trying to level up, it's probably going to push you down an interest break point, if that makes any sense. So even if you might have the extra gold to possibly level when you would used to, it might not be worth it because you're missing out on the interest break points. Like when you get an amount of gold, it's always good. Econing is always good when you can. And so I'm wondering if the trade-off will even be worth it, getting that couple extra gold to level up earlier, or if it's just better just to hold on to it so you can hit those breakpoints faster and then start to think about econing. It's gonna be interesting. I think, you know.
I just love the fact that we market this as sort of like a more casual approach to TFT, and then we're going so in depth on these very minor systematic changes. I love talking about this kind of thing.
Yeah, it is. And you know, like if you're new to the game, like a lot of this will probably seem confusing, right? And that's okay, because it is kind of confusing to start out with. Listen to the first episodes of when we first started doing this. You'll hear the beginning guides and all of that stuff, because as the game has evolved, we have to evolve and kind of learn how the changes are taking place. But it is pretty cool to talk about some of these minute possibilities that are going to happen in the next patch. All right, you want to handle the champion tier drop rates, because this is a lot of it's a lot of stuff. Go ahead.
I'll cliff notes it for you guys.
There you go.
So it says that we've made some minor adjustments to how likely which tier champions will appear at different levels. We're hoping to make clear early, mid, and late game phases. Level 3 by tier is going 1 cost units are going up, and 3 cost units are going up as well. So you have a slightly more chance to get 1 cost units and 3 cost units, slightly less chance to get 2 cost units. Yep. At level 5, you have slightly less chance to get 1 cost units, the same chance to get 2, the same chance to get 3, slightly more chance to get 4 cost units. At level 6, you have slightly less chance, or slightly more chance to get 1 cost, same for 2, same for 3, same for 4, but no chance to get 5 costs, which is what we said.
Yep.
And then the last change is at level 9, you have slightly more chance to get 5 costs, 2% more. Again, which will hopefully mean that if you actually get to max rank, you'll get your Pantheon or your Swain slightly more consistently.
Yeah, and you know, that's a lot of changes. Yeah. This is going to affect a lot of things. I think people probably might not notice until they're playing the game. They're like, what's up with this? Like, I'm used to seeing these champions more often or whatever by this time, and it's probably going to shock some people. So it is important to note these percentage changes. And again, if you need to rewind this, definitely do that, or look on the patch notes, because those percentage chances are important to know. Because there will be times, and this is why it's important, is because you might be at a certain level and you need a certain unit, and so you need to know the probability of your chances of getting that unit, or is it better to wait till the next level? I'll
take this moment to plug Blitz app again. They have a fantastic overlay that will show you what your chance is to get a certain unit at any level. So if you're like, man, I really need a NAR, what percent chance do I have to get?
That's right.
It works really well for that. I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, and you know, the if you haven't heard about that app yet, go back to our episode on TFT resources, and Nighthawk recommended it. In fact, after that episode, I went ahead and downloaded it, and it is amazing because it just at a glance you could see your chances of getting cost units. I'm sure they'll have to update it now, and they'll most likely do that. But again, know these percentages. It is going to affect your game.
Yeah.
So
they have this great feature that I didn't notice until today, where it takes all the compositions that you've gone in the past, and it ranks your average place with them.
With them,
my average place with Wild Shapeshifters is 3.9.
That's not bad. That's good.
That's not bad. That's top 4.
Top 4, man. Hey, look, it's still
happening. For Wild Sorcerers, I have a 1.7 average.
Very interesting. And you know what? Speaking of wilds, we'll get to it in a sec, but I think you might like I think you might like the changes here, or we'll see. We'll see when we get to it. All right, actually not the last change, but another system change is champion pool sizes. So as we mentioned, they said their thinking is that it's too consistent to get 2-star tier 3 champions, so they're trying to shrink the bag size to reward players who build the path less taken. So in other words, they're decreasing the champion pool, the tier 3 champions in pool, from 21 to 18. And again, I think this might be offset a little bit by Neeko's help. But again, it will be, don't be surprised if you're not seeing as many of those tier 3 champions in your pool.
And tier 3 champions, they tend to be like usually a cornerstone of the team, not so much as like the tier 4s. But you have Ashe, you have Aatrox, you have Shyvana, you have Rengar, Kennen, Poppy.
I mean, even Eve great. Still to some degree.
Yeah, Evelyn. Yeah. So this is going to affect this is a major nerf to strats that lots of people want to go for. So if like you have a whole game where everyone's going Night Rangers or a whole game where everyone's going Evelyn carries, there's harder. 3 less of that unit in the pool. Good luck.
Yeah, and the thing is like, it's a kind of a shift in what we've been seeing, because previously before these, I guess I would say maybe the past couple patches, the big carries were at 4 cost, right? Like with Cho'Gath, with Draven, Jinx, even Vi to some extent. Like 4 cost units were kind of the cornerstone. But I'd say the past patch or two, the cornerstones have been like what you said, these 3 cost units, and it is easier to get them to 2 stars. It has been, and so I think they've recognized that 3 cost units is where the action's starting to happen, and so they kind of want to make it. They kind of want to force you to think outside of just the same old comps and possibly look to other things, which will hopefully vary the gameplay. But interesting to see them make that move. All right, let's go to item stacking and clarity. This is just a nice little, I kind of say, quality of life change. Some people always ask, hey, does this stack? And a lot of times I don't even know myself, right? So what's nice about this is that items that don't stack or that can't stack, when you try to put it on a champion that has an item that's unstackable, it'll simply fall off that champion. You won't be able to do it. In essence, this is, for example, if you're trying to make a Yuumi and you're trying to put it on like a Morgana who's already a sorcerer. So Yuumi makes a champion a sorcerer, but since Morgana's already a sorcerer, it will not let you put Yuumi.
No. Okay, real quick. I think it means you just can't put 2 Yuumis. No. Because I think you. Are you sure?
No. So what I mean is that because Morgana's a demon sorcerer, right? So as it is now. You wouldn't be able to make a Yuumi item on Morgana. Like if you tried, it would just slip right off. You'd be like, why is it not doing it? Same with the Blade Master. Like if you were trying to make a Blade Master on Draven, it wouldn't let you. Yeah. So if you try,
I didn't know about that.
Yeah. If you go right now and, for example, get a spatula and a recurve bow, right? That makes Blade Master. Try to put it on a Draven who's already a Blade Master. It won't let you.
And it won't let you? Oh, interesting.
No, it won't let you. So just like that mechanic, it's now doing that for stacking things as well. So you can't, But I mean, I could see how some people might want to try stacking Yuumi.
Yeah, because I was like, what if you wanted 40 AP on your Morgana? Or what if you wanted the 40% attack speed on your Draven or something like that?
It won't work.
It seems like... I guess not. I guess you can't use it.
It won't work. Yep. So, but now, they're applying that same mechanic to items that don't stack. For example, like Morello, who some people thought, oh, if I put 2 Morellos, that means twice the burn. So since that doesn't work, if you try to put a Morello on a champion that already has Morello, it won't let you. It'll slide right off, just like how it kind of does already. But so it's interesting to know, and you can find a list of all of the things that you can't stack. So I'll just read them for your convenience. So Yumu's Ghostblade, Knight's Vow, Frozen Mallet, Yuumi, Blade of the Rune King, Darkin, Phantom Dancer, Morello, and Red Buff. So those
basically all the spatula items, Phantom Dancer, Morellos, and Red Buff.
Yep, exactly. Cool. So I hope that makes sense. I hope I explained it okay. Does that make sense a little bit, Nighthawk? I
guess it makes sense.
Okay.
I'm glad that they finally did this because like you said, that there was a lot of confusion. Like, does this stack? So hopefully
stack
this is
GA?
the end of that.
If you stack GA on something, do they get to live 3 times?
Oh wait, that's a good point. I don't know. I don't know if GA
that's not on here.
It's not on here, so maybe
it's not on here. So maybe is somebody, one of the listeners out there, willing to try this?
Unless they just missed it.
Maybe we'll have to see. Gosh, I could hear it now. People saying, oh, "Man, I stacked GA, and it did not work."
Doesn't work.
But yeah, so it's not a list. I doubt it stacks, but anyways, we'll see. All right, let's move to traits. So some new traits here. New 9-piece bonuses. I don't really see how any of this is even possible unless you just get like the god tier items. You got to get some major spatulas. But not even that. You need the other component to make this work. But they've added 2 9-piece synergies. So Assassin 9-piece will grant 225% crit damage and 40% crit chance. Sorcerer 9-piece will grant 175% ability power. I really want to try this just for the lols and see what happens, but I don't know. Like, I don't even know how that's possible.
Not only do you have to have, not only does it be level 9, which is rare enough already, especially if you're going a full sorcerer or assassin comp. You have to have had 3 spatulas drop and then 3 needlessly arch rods or BF swords. So
yeah, that's a lot of like you like I said, the stars have to align for I feel like some of these to work. So yeah, we'll see. I mean,
yeah, it's a nice change because if it ever did happen, it obviously is really cool.
It's something. Yeah.
And then it also paves the way in the future if they ever want to add more assassins or more sorcerers.
That's true. Okay, let's go to Wild. Like I was talking about, so Wild got a buff. We'll see if this. I mean, I think it's interesting. Let me just read it. So, definitely the 4 Wild buff bonus was a little underwhelming. So they spiced it up a little bit. So now with 4 wilds, all your allies get 12% attack speed per attack up to 5 stacks. That's normal. But they're adding that their basic attacks can't miss. This is interesting. So it's anti-Yordle for sure. But I think, who do you pair this up with?
It's also good against
pair this up
Phantom
with a lot.
Dancer.
Yeah, good against Phantom Dancer.
So if I wanted to say something real quick, I think that this change was meant to ship with the items that are coming out next patch. Because next patch we're getting a lot of dodge chance items. So at this point, I think that this adds basically nothing to Wild. You screw over Yordles a little harder, but Yordles aren't really that popular.
Exactly.
And then I guess it's really nice because if you went Assassins, then you can't be countered by Phantom Dancer.
Yep.
But I don't know. This seems like a very odd change at this point. But next patch, I think this will be a very important change to the point where Wild might actually be OP.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be interesting how it plays out. Yeah, I don't know, honestly. Like, I think you made a good point as far as like when the new items come out, this is kind of like just a compensation almost to balance things out because otherwise some of those items might be OP. So right now it might be good for this patch. But we'll have to see when the new items actually do come out.
Yeah, because you'll have like a 6 Yordle team with whatever the item that gives 40% dodge chance.
Yeah,
that's literally 100% dodge chance. So if you didn't have a way to pierce dodges without like a Last Whisper or whatever the new item is, then I think it would be broken. So I think giving some synergy in this game, the ability to pierce dodge is nice. I guess they just gave it to Wild because Wild is probably one of the more underwhelming synergies right now, even though I think it's very powerful.
I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it the thing is, like, for me, I have a hard time, like, I just feel like Wild doesn't have too many good, like, like, outside of Wild, like, Wild and what? Like, Wild Shapeshifter is great. But Wild and what else? Like, I want to see
Wild Shapeshifter, and then like sorcerers, and that's
what I mean.
That's all you can go.
Like, I want to see Wild Rangers. Like, I feel like they need more Wild, like, brawlers, just straight up that don't need to transform. Like more Warwicks, right? More brawlers, more tanky Wilds to just be a front line so that you can mix them up with other champs. Anyways, that's my rant on Wild. It wasn't long, but I think it needed to be said. General trait adjustments. Elementalist Golem's armor has gone from 20 to 40, which is pretty good because I feel like Elementalists are pretty strong right now. I feel like they're almost like in the Guardian category where Guardian takes 2, right? And you got a nice buff there. Elementalists only take 3 and you get a freaking Golem and now he's going to be tankier.
And so many of the Elementalists are really good too. Kennen is great. Brand is great. And Nivea is
Lissandra's pretty good now.
Lissandra's not terrible anymore.
No, she's not terrible anymore.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's pretty cool.
So this is
nice.
Nice.
It's going to be strong. I think it's going to make Elementalists pretty strong. I mentioned earlier Ranger Elementalist was a thing that I've been seeing that was OP. I think this is going to make it definitely more OP. All right, let's go to Knights damage reduction. So they buffed it a little bit. At 2 Knights, it's still 15. At 4 Knights, it's 35 instead of 30, and then at 6 Knights, which I don't know why you would do this, instead of 55 it's 65. I still think it's poop. I mean, that's just honestly they're trying to give Knights some love, but even 4 knights is like, it may be good for a round if you get it early enough. But after that,
I think the major problem with knights is so many of the knights are 1 costs. Garen, Mordekaiser, and Darius. Yeah. And then you have Poppy and Sejuani, which are both really good. And then Kayle, which is excellent. So if you're going 4 knights, you're going to have to put at least 1 bad knight in. And if you're going 6 knights, you're going to have to put 3 bad knights in.
Yeah. It's true.
I don't know.
And by that
65
time, like,
damage reduction is not that much. Like,
it's not that much. Like, no, not at all. And the thing is like, usually most people, or at least when I play knights, I'm transitioning my crappy knights for better knights. So it's like, and the ones that I transition, I'm not holding on to them. I'm using them to sell and get gold so that I can get better units. So
you go from like Garen and Darius, and then you go to like either Poppy and Sejuani or Mordekaiser and Sejuani for Phantom.
Yep, for Phantom.
And then you just put in Guardians. You put in Brahmin and Pantheon, or Brahmin Leona. Exactly. And that's going to be way better than 4 knights, because 2 Guardians and 2 knights is way stronger than
that.
4,
Is way
4 knights.
Yes. I've been playing that actually. That was a comp that I was using a lot, because even if I couldn't get my carries online, you stop so much damage that they're only like they're like flicking you basically, like you take like 1-2 damage. So definitely 2 knights, 2 guardians with the armor buff is just insane. Even if you have a somewhat decent carry, it's still going to be pretty good. So I don't know, outside of that, I don't think it's going to be, I mean, again, for two knights it's the same. So all right, let's go to assassin jump delay. So it looks like it seems like they're just playing around with the number. It's going from 0.325 seconds to 0.395 seconds. So it's going to be like a
0.07 second increase.
I mean, I guess it was something. Because
I don't know if this makes assassins better. I guess it does.
I mean, assassins are already strong.
The intention of this change is to make it so that it's harder to hide from assassins by cornering and backlining. Yeah. But I don't know how effective it is. I'll have to test it. I don't think that this is
look, I've been playing against a lot of Void Assassins, and I cannot hide my carries from them.
Yeah, I already think that it wasn't that hard to hide.
Exactly.
Or it wasn't that easy to hide.
Yeah,
like,
you can't.
You have to like put a unit back there to protect it.
Yes.
And maybe it doesn't work anymore with this. Who knows?
I don't know. But yeah, if that was their intent, I don't think they needed to do that, because it was already hard to hide your carries like in a corner or something like that. So we'll see how that actually plays out. But I think it's just a little weird that they increased the delay. All right, let's look at some of the changes for the champions. So tier 1 champions, Camille definitely needed some love. They buffed her AD by 5 from 50 to 55. I don't know if that does anything. At least the Spiderlings, I do think this does a little something. You know, her Spiderling attack damage has gone from 50 to 60. You get what?
I actually didn't know they had. I think that's more attack damage than she has. At level 1.
They do a lot of damage. They're weak, right? Like they die instantly. But yeah, I mean, I guess having a little extra AD there is pretty nice. I actually think that's decent. That's a nice change. Graves' armor has gone from 20 to 30. I think this is good, because early gunslingers, if you are going that route, he's kind of the tank gunslinger.
Yeah, it's ironic because like you wouldn't consider him a tank, but he really is the only way for you to get a frontline early game with gunslingers. So this is nice.
Yeah. It'll be good to see that. Kassadin attack damage, they nerfed it a little bit from 55 to 50. I have been seeing a lot of Kassadins lately, kind of as an item holder until a better Void unit comes out, or another assassin. So I guess this will be kind of nice, because then it's kind of like you need to commit to Sorcerer or something, you know, if you're going to hold on to Kassadin.
He's also really strong as just like, he just disrupts early game.
So
synergies really well because the mana sap.
It is definitely annoying, and you probably know the feeling if you've had like your main ult that you're hoping for to go off in the front, like Kennen, and the Kassadin is just wailing on this Kennen, and Kennen can't get any mana to use this ult, which you're like, come on. All right, so and then finally Kha'Zix's starting and total mana was 0 and 50, now it's 0 and 65, so it's gonna be a little longer for him to ult.
2 nerfs to Voids early, which I think is pretty impactful. So we'll see if Void Assassin still is a thing.
because there, like you said, there's a couple of nerfs here. So that's it for the tier 1 units. Do you want to take the tier 2 ones?
Sure. A nerf to Pike. His starting mana is going from 75 to 50. So you'll need to get 25 more mana, which is, I believe, 2 to 3 more autos, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Twisted Fate's getting 50 more HP from 450 to 500. And his blue card mana regen is going from 20 to 50 to 30 to 70. So you get a little bit more mana when he actually gets his blue card, which is probably his strongest one anyway.
Yeah.
So that's really nice. I think Twisted Fate probably needed some love. Pirates is a little weak. So the nerf to Pike especially makes Pirates even weaker. So buffing Twisted Fate is a nice little compensation buff. Also makes Sorcerers a little better.
This is interesting because Pike has been pretty good if you're going gunslingers or if you're going like Void Assassins, right? Because not necessarily his damage, but his CC, and it does go up pretty fast. And man, if he catches like multiple units stunned, it's very annoying to deal with. So the fact that it takes him a little longer is going to be interesting, and I'm wondering if even a 1-star Pike is going to be able to survive that to be able to ult. So that'll be
I don't know. I think this probably puts Pike at the point where it's like not worth putting in Assassins. I think it's still worth putting in Pirates until you get like the 2-star or until you get like the items.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think you're definitely going to have to think about making them 2-star before you consider something like this, because before, even as it is now, like you could put in a 1-star Pike and he'd still be good because of that CC early on. So he's a 2 cost, and so now it's gonna be a little bit more difficult. I do like the Twisted Fate change here. I know before Kevin had this awesome like sorcerer comp, Yordle comp with TF as kind of the backbone with the blue card and instantly being able to ult because of all the mana. And I think this kind of buffs up that type of strategy again. If you're planning to go sorcerer building around a TF, I mean, your sorcerers are going to definitely be able to ult much quicker if TF can get that blue card off.
The funny thing about Twisted Fate is that he would be such a strong unit if he only had blue card. I think the other cards are just so worthless in comparison to blue card. Not that they're individually weak. I just think that when you put a Twisted Fate in, you don't really want damage. You just want that mana acceleration. Getting any ult off, getting all of your ults off on your team either again or quicker is so much more important than stunning a unit for 2 seconds or whatever it is. So I don't know. Twisted Fate's a weird unit.
I agree with you there. Again, it's another RNG element there because you don't know what card you're going to get. And it does feel really bad when you don't get that blue card because that's a good card. It's weird because a lot of times in regular league, it's like the blue card is not normally the one you're getting unless you're just in lane trying to get more mana back. But in TFT, it's actually pretty important for the rest of your team. So we'll have to see if they ever make any changes to that because he does feel a little bit underwhelming. Also, the pirate buff, like, yes, he can be a pirate buff, but he's not really good in the pirate buff. Like, at least Pike does something, GP has something, Graves has something, right?
You want to switch him out as soon as you get you want to switch him out as soon as you get like the GP or something or a better third pirate because he just doesn't really fit into that comp. He's not frontline. He's not really great damage. He's not really good at anything. By himself.
That's what I mean. Poor guy. Poor TF. Okay. All right. Let's move on to tier 3 units. So Evelyn. Okay. So they nerfed her some more here. So Evelyn execute threshold was 65%. Now it's 50%. So you're going to have to whittle that champion down a little more before that execute will go off. The execute multiplier has also gone down. It was 3, 5, and 7. Now it's 3, 4, and 5. Yeah, that's
I think this means like the amount of times it does up the base damage.
Yeah.
So
it's less.
Yeah.
This is less on that.
I think you were actually right when you said Evelyn has gone down a little bit in popularity recently because people are learning how to play against it and it's become less flavor of the month. But I still think this is a nice change just to really cement the fact that Evelyn shouldn't be able to 1v9 at the enemy team because of certain items.
Part of it too was because her core item was Hextech Gunblade, and with such amount of damage on the execute, you healed up a severe amount.
Yeah.
And so now with this multiplier
down, heal every time.
She's definitely not going to be able to heal up like that. And with the execute threshold going down, you're not going to be able to execute as often. So I definitely think this is going to be a pretty big hit. I'm wondering if she even. I'm kind of trying to think on what she'll fit in, except for demon. I don't even know if she makes
I really
assassin
don't know
anymore.
Maybe assassin still, but not like as the item carry anymore.
Exactly. Yep. I agree. Okay. Katarina. So they gave her a buff. So her mana was 0 and 100. Now it's 0.85. That means she'll be ulting quicker because I think.
Yeah. It also means it's way easier to reach. It's way easier to reach that item threshold on her.
Yeah.
Where if you put 2 tiers on her or 2 Seraphs on her, she's just gonna ult over and over and over and over and over again.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But that was kind of her weakness, though, right? Like she was kind of useless, and it took her forever to ult. And it's like if she just ulted a little sooner, would have been nice. And you could fix that with items. Now I'm wondering, do you think this will make her OP with items? Because she was pretty strong with the correct items, but I mean, with 85,
I think she's too easy to interrupt when she's ulting.
True.
Any amount of CC or any amount of any like silences or anything like that does stop her when she's ulting. It's not like Evelyn where it's like a one and done.
Yes.
And it just kills something. It does take some time, but I think this definitely opens her up for some opportunities to actually be, like you said, an item carry. Put a Dragon's Claw on her, put maybe even a Frozen Heart on her. And just let her go in the back line and hopefully get her ult off, because her ult does do a lot of damage, especially with Imperial buff if you manage to get that.
For sure. Absolutely. Okay, so it'll be interesting. Maybe people will actually throw her in an assassin comp. I hardly ever see her in assassin comp. She's kind of the one that's left out. All right, so tier 4 units, Akali is the only one getting a buff here, which is pretty cool. So it was 150, 275, and 400. Now it's 200, 350, and 500. That's pretty significant, I think.
Yeah, it's also important to note that any buff to a ninja, their base damage is a double buff, because ninjas automatically get 50 AP off the bat. Yeah. So this is maybe just 50 damage, 50 to 75 to 100 damage. But with 50 AP, that's another 25, 50, and then 75 damage on top of that, or something similar to that. So this is a pretty big buff to Akali.
This is pretty big, and I think she is a key piece to, I wouldn't say like the most important, but she's a pretty integral part of like assassin comps. She's one of the better ones, so having this buff is interesting. Again, we'll see how it plays out, because there were some nerfs to voids and all of that stuff. So I don't know. We'll have to see if this actually gets her more gameplay. Maybe there might be other I don't know, synergies people throw out there. All right, let's move on to tier 5. The last one. You want to take this one, Nighthawk? Tier 5.
Yeah. So Anivia, which is probably, I don't want to say she's bad, but she's probably one of the weaker 5 cost units. She's getting a buff. Her ult now does, instead of 800 damage over 8 seconds, it does 800 damage over 6 seconds. So it doesn't last as long, which isn't really that big of a deal, because it will do more damage quicker. So
that's right.
Hopefully it will be able to kill units a lot quicker, because 800 damage over 8 seconds is 100 damage a second. Whereas 800 damage over 6 seconds, I think that's 120. So slightly more damage per tick, which is nice. And most of the time, the round would be over by the time the Anivia ult went away. So you're not really missing the 2 second duration.
Yeah, I only have one contention of that, and I think MF is the worst 5-star unit.
Oh, yeah. You know why? You know why I didn't say MF?
Why?
I forgot she existed. I literally forgot she existed.
Again, it's literally one change they need to make, and we've said this before. If they just made her ult just like Aurelion Souls or Vise, it would be, or Pikes, it would be much better. But the fact that she ults in the direction of the person she's attacking just makes her so poopy. So yeah, and right now Anivia's strong with Ranger. So
yeah, I think Anivia's okay. I don't think she's bad. I just think she was one of the weaker 5 costs, because every other 5 cost is really, really good.
Yes.
And then now Pantheon, he's losing 150 HP.
Yeah.
and 5 attack damage. 150 HP is way bigger of a nerf than the 5 attack damage. 5 attack damage is whatever. Losing 150 HP, that's effectively a lot more because Pantheon has a butt ton of armor, and he's a Guardian, which means he's going to get a butt ton more armor, and you're likely to stack armor items on him. So every point of HP that you lose, when you have 100 armor, every 100 armor doubles that. So 100 armor with 1 point of HP means you have 2 point of HP. So losing 150 HP actually means you lose 300 HP.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And losing, if you have 200 armor, which is definitely easy to get with Guardian and some items, you're losing like 300 HP here. So
yeah,
a pretty big nerf to Pantheon. He probably deserved it. He was a very, very, very easy unit to slot into any comp. Yeah. Excellent unit. Probably still really good, but definitely not over the top as much anymore.
Yeah, I like this change because, like you said, I think the real, not only is he just strong by himself, but he does slot in so well that he's really coveted. Like, you want a Pantheon. Like, there are times where, like, I wasn't even thinking about Pantheon in my mix, and then all of a sudden I rolled one, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to grab him, and he actually I can make this work.
It doesn't help that... It doesn't help that he's probably the coolest looking 5 cost, especially on the carousel.
Look really cool. Yeah.
He just looks he's so much bigger than every other unit on the carousel.
I know.
And he's got he's just bright and shiny, and you're just like, oh man, I want that.
I agree, man. Make him uglier, Riot, so nobody will get him, and I'll sneak in there and grab him. I do think he'll still be okay for just the utility of him. Putting grievous wounds on, being untargetable, and then basically running
he's still going to be a better Guardian than Leona, I think. So
I think so too.
Put him over Leona.
I do like this change though. Maybe it'll make him a little less OP, but again, like still good. Like you don't want him to be terrible. Like he's still going to be a good champ. So those are the champion changes. Now let's go to the item changes. First thing is BF Sword attack damage has gone down from 20 to 15. I don't know if that makes a difference. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I know BF swords are highly coveted now because they make so many good items at the moment. You know, GA, whatever, even assassins with spatula, and whatever. It's coveted, but I don't know if the AD makes a big difference here.
I am not sure. I'm assuming this means that every BF sword item loses 5 AD as well. Probably. It doesn't say that, but I would assume that. Which is fine because most of the BF sword items you don't really care about the AD, except for maybe Infinity Edge, which I don't think needed a nerf. So I don't know. So a very odd change.
Exactly. It is kind of interesting that they would do that. Also, I'm trying to think too because that kind of sucks if it does lower the AD because sometimes AD you need so I've been building Infinity Edges a little more often than I have before just because of shapeshifters especially dragons the MR I've been just getting messed up.
Sometimes you need a little bit of AD to punch through that.
Exactly. So I don't know, this is a little weird if it does remove some of that AD from all the full items with BF swords, so we'll have to see that, and maybe this is a indirect buff to shapeshifters as well. Frozen Heart debuff. The duration has gone up from 2.8 seconds to 4 seconds. That's pretty long. I think it needed some love, and I like Frozen Heart. I think it's a great item. I just don't use it.
This is also really nice. If your unit dies really early for some reason, the debuff's going to last almost twice as long, which is really good because it was an awkward debuff to use because it only affects 1 hex around your unit. So it's really only affecting the front half of the hex because the back half of your hex is usually your units. So it was a weird item. I still think it's really good, and I think it's even better now with this buff.
I do. I don't know why people don't use this more often, especially in kind of this ranger meta. I feel like it would be really good if you could have an assassin of Frozen Heart jump back there and just kind of slow them down. But maybe this will give it some love. Now moving on to Locket, I think is actually really good. So I already thought it was good that they moved it to 6 seconds, the duration, instead of 4. So instead of 250 for 6 seconds, it's 300 for 7 seconds. So not only does it last longer, it's also stronger. I like this buff. I don't think it was OP by any means. I thought it was decent. I think this just makes it better.
I think this is really good.
It's just a good change, good buff.
I think this is it's going to make it's going to make it really good on every front line. So if you just happen to get I still don't think it's like the item that you like really want to go for. If you get like a needlessly large rod and a chainmail, but I think this is definitely not a bad item in any circumstance. Adding 300 HP to all of your front line, or if you're going assassins, that could come back. Adding 300 HP to all your assassins is great, and 7 seconds is by far long enough.
That is
I don't
really
think there's any situations where you're not going to have already broken that 300 health shield. Except for like some crazy weird circumstance where your Ash didn't get targeted at all or something like that. So I think this is really good. I think Locket is a powerful item.
I think so too. And I think it's always, I mean, like I said, I thought it was a good item already. I think there's just OP items right now. And I think a lot of these changes are trying to, except for the BF sword, which I don't quite understand. Actually, maybe I do understand. Maybe they want to discourage you from building some of those strong BF items. But at the same time, they're trying to make these other ones that are good items, but not being used so much, maybe bring them into the spotlight a little bit. Because I think Frozen Heart's great. I think Locket's great. And then moving on to Swordbreaker, because I feel like the semi-twin brother and sister of this is Hush, and Hush is just redonkulous right now. So I think they're trying
Hush is amazing.
It's amazing, and so now they're trying to make Swordbreaker kind of up to par maybe with it. So it's being buffed. It was a 25% chance to disarm for 4 seconds. Now it's a 33% chance to disarm for 3 seconds, which I think is still long enough, but giving you an extra percentage higher to actually disarm them.
Yeah, it makes it far more consistent to proc this, and this is actually a big buff to gunslingers as well. Because the best way to spread that Swordbreaker debuff and the Hush debuff is gunslingers. The other best way is like a Radiant's Hurricane on an Ash or a Jinx or something.
Oh gosh,
but Gunslingers is the easiest way to spread this. Swordbreaker is really, really strong in situational things. I still think Hush is probably the stronger of, like you said, the two brother and sister. But put both of them on a Tristana or a Jinx. And you shut down the enemy team very hard. They can't ult and they can't auto attack. What are they going to do?
That's so frustrating. Yeah, I'd like to see more Swordbreaker. I tell you, every time I have the components, I never build it. So maybe I might start.
Yeah, I just think it's not a sexy item to build.
It's not.
But maybe you should build it more often because I think it's really powerful. And you throw this in a Hex Tech comp, and they can't ult. They can't use their abilities, so they can't auto attack, and they don't have items. What are they going to do? They got nothing.
That's the anti-fun comp right there. We'll build Swordbreaker, Silent, Hush, and Shrink. Whatever the Shrink one is.
Curse Blade. Yeah, wow.
And then Hex Tech. Oh gosh, anti-fun champ. Anti-fun.
Put a Zephyr in there too. Why not?
Speaking of Zephyr, they buffed it too, which is crazy. So
why not put a Phantom in there too?
A Phantom and Zephyr. So 5 seconds. Zephyr Banish was 5 seconds. Now it's 6 seconds, which is ridiculously long. And if you place it right, this could win you the fight. Honestly, I think it's good. I always thought
it's hard to place Zephyr correctly because everything's backwards.
Everything's backwards.
So you kind of have to like. It's only very useful in terms of like a tech item if it's just two people.
That's what I mean.
Then you kind of have to like outplay them because if they're watching you, they'll move their
who's going to move it at the last second?
Like, last second. Yeah, you're like, whoop, whoop.
No, that's absolutely right.
Weird. It's a very weird dynamic.
It's really nice, like when there's only two people because you can have somewhat control over it. But again, otherwise it's just pretty random. But so is Phantom buff, right? So it's like
that's true.
I don't know, but I think it's good either way. I always liked Zephyr. I hardly build it, but I think it's a decent item. But
it's such an awkward. It's like I think it's 200 HP and 20 MR too, which is like really awkward stats.
To
have.
It is
because you want to put it on your front line, but then it doesn't target who you want, and then I don't know. It's awkward.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting. Okay, well, those are the item changes. Again, I think they're just trying to bring some of these decent items more into the spotlight. I think their goal is variety here. They don't want to see. I don't think they want to see the same comps over and over. They don't want to see the same items over and over. And so I think that's what they're trying to do with this mystery box thing. With some of the changes they're making, they're trying to make everything kind of seem like you won't feel bad if you get a certain thing, right? Like you're like, okay, I can make something work out of this. And I think that's good. I think that's good for the game. It definitely feels bad when you know you're not getting the draws you need and you're just kind of out of luck. But now it does seem like you have more options to kind of go. The tricky part is knowing when to go these routes and how. So anyways, the rest is just bug fixes. Is there any like notable bug fix that you want to mention? Otherwise, we'll just leave it be. But
the only one that really it kind of ties into what we're saying. Apparently, Zeke's Herald and Locket of the Iron Solari, if they were disabled by Hextech, if there was enemy units near them, like to the left or right, when they got re-enabled, it would give the buffs to them instead of your team. So that's a nice fix.
That is a good fix. Good gosh.
You're no longer helping the enemy by building those items now.
Oh wow.
I don't know. There's nothing else really here. Brand ult got fixed. It was bouncing more than it was supposed to. Yeah. So we're right about that.
I think Camille's ability, I think this is kind of and this is probably how it's supposed to be intended anyways, but I think this is actually pretty good for her. Makes her a little bit better. Like with her ability, she's supposed to be rooting the champion that she targets, and apparently Eve could escape out of that. Now she can't. Shyvana will dash in place instead of dashing out, and Pantheon and Vi will not cast their abilities while rooted. So I think that's pretty good, actually.
It's an okay buff to Camille. One of the
I think that's how it was supposed to be. Like maybe that's why she's so maybe it gives her a little bit of, I don't know, utility, something maybe worth putting in there. I mean, I don't know. You'll be able to find her, so you can at least 2-star her. that's for sure.
That's true. You have a very high chance of getting a 3-star now.
Yeah, exactly. They also fixed Brand's ability. It was bouncing more than it should have. Now it's a bouncing.
Yeah, I think it was when you had Morello's, it was bouncing too much, but I'm not sure. Either way, good, because Brand is really strong.
Definitely. Okay, well, that's pretty much the patch. Did you have any final notes or tidbits that you wanted to throw in there to our listeners and viewers?
Not really. Keep an eye out on 9.19. That's going to be a really big patch.
Definitely.
Keep an eye on the subreddit or the Twitters, the people you follow, because if there's any big changes that are going to happen in this patch, like big meta shifts, that's probably how you're going to find about it first.
Yeah.
I think the biggest change this patch is just going to be the item system, and hopefully it balances out a little bit better.
Yeah, and I was going to say that too. Like, so 9.19 is going to be big, right? But I think this is a good patch to start playing some normal games and trying out different things. Not so far as comps. Yeah, there will be new comps, but try different leveling strategies, try different econing strategies, more overall macro play, because I think with 9.19 coming out with the new items, it will be nice if you already have a level or a grasp of how the macro is going to play out. So that, because if you just wait and play like normal, you're going to be really screwed over when 9.19 comes out and you're trying to learn all these things together. So I think it's a good idea, at least in 9.18, to play some normal games and just mess around and try different things, because when 9.19 hits, it's definitely going to be pretty chaotic with all of these new things coming out. So okay, so you good, Nighthawk? You feel like we've covered this pretty well? Nice.
I think we did a good job.
I think we did too. I like these duo casts with you, man. I feel like it's intimate and personal. You know, I feel like we're just sitting in a living room around a fire discussing TFT.
Yeah, it's easy. It's easy to talk about.
Exactly. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us, guys. Hey, if you have any questions or if there's anything specific you want us to talk about, then please email us at the allinpodcast, lol@gmail.com, or you can always tweet us at the allinpodcast. Hey, I want to thank my co-host again, Nighthawk, for being here and sharing his thoughts and his infinite wisdom on the patch. I really appreciate him. Always taking the time out and just letting him drop his knowledge. But you guys, until next time, enjoy your climb on the Rift or in Teamfight Tactics. Try not to be too toxic, and we'll definitely see you next time. Peace.